I am going to go ahead and call the meeting to order for the Finance Subcommittee of the City of Bloomington Utilities Board. And our first order of business is to review the recommended 2022 budget. And I will pass that to staff and ask them to give their report.
Can everyone see it?
Yes.
It's visible? Okay.
Yes.
Good evening. This is our first presentation related to the 2022 city budget. This is the sort of the bones of the presentation that we'll be giving to council in a few weeks. Our purpose tonight is to go over it in general terms that are relevant for the Finance Subcommittee, which means we're basically leaving out the review of the 2021 goals and where we stand. I think most of you've been watching what we've been doing for the last 6 months, so it will save us some time. And we want to focus mostly on the numbers which you would have received from Laura and from Latrina over the last couple of days. So I'm just going to dive right in. As of today, we have about 169 full-time equivalent employees. As you know, we have 3 utilities with 6 divisions that are all interconnected. Around 25,000 active accounts in waterworks, 22,000 some odd in sewer works connections, and about 101 miles of pipe and ditches, and pushing 6,000 storm inlets in the stormwater utility. As I said, we're gonna just gloss over the 2021 goals because really the 2022 goals are basically the finishing up the things we started in 2021. We had a lot of multi-year efforts and efforts that were delayed because of from 2020 into 21 because of the COVID epidemic. So our major initiatives for 2022 are going to be increasing the capacity for wastewater treatment at the Dillman plant, drinking water quality improvements, water main replacements, improvements to our stormwater infrastructure, process modernization, and expanding our climate action programs. As you know, we have been organizing our budget goals for the last 3 years using the AWWA's Effective Utility Management Framework. For the purpose of this presentation, we're only going to go into detail on the first 5 of these goals. The other ones are have smaller lists of details, and it's just in the interest of time. So if you have questions about the other categories, such as enterprise resiliency or water resource sustainability and whatnot, we're happy to answer any questions that you have. And they are covered in the budget memo. So we'll start with product quality. This is to produce fit for purpose treated drinking water, treated wastewater effluent, stormwater discharge, and then the other recovered resources such as nutrients and biosolids that will meet or exceed our responsibilities under all the regulatory frameworks. So this is obviously the largest area in our budget because it's the operation of all of our plants and infrastructure. In 2022, the waterworks goals will be, first of all, of course, to operate the treatment plant and our distribution plant 24 hours a day for the whole year without any violations of our operating permits. We want to continue to achieve annual average levels in treated water for 50 parts per billion or less for total trihalomethanes and 40 parts per billion or less for total haloacetic acids, HAE5. These are about 2/3 of the EPA limits for both of those categories of contaminants. And we're also going to install at least 5 more auto flush hydrants over the system at a cost of around $50,000. Now, these auto flush hydrants are different from the ones that we were planning to install in 2010 in that these can be directly connected into stormwater infrastructure, for example, into a stormwater culvert, rather than simply dumping it into a ditch. And the sewer works will operate both the wastewater plants for 24 hours a day through the year without violating our NPDES permits. And subject to approval from EPA, will bring the sewer use ordinance amendments to the Blucher Pool pretreatment program, and we'll bring those up to council. In 2021, we're completing the local limits study for the Blucher Pool wastewater treatment plant sewer shed. Those local limits then would go to EPA, and we need to get approval from EPA before we can take it to council. And then in the stormwater utility, we're completing the stormwater master plan this year. We'll begin implementing it in 2022. This will require some ordinance changes that marry the MS4 program with the UDO. The MS4 program is our municipal stormwater system. And we'll publish a stormwater quality manual. As I said, we are finishing the master plan this year based on input from stakeholders and in the city and the private sector. So this has been an ongoing effort for a while, and we're going to be bringing it to fruition as a regulatory tool in 2022. The second category is operational optimization. This is automating processes where it's possible to make better data-driven decisions. And this is going to be using our smart systems, such as our smart meters, the other kinds of infrastructure we have, data collection from SCADA and our laboratory information system. These are all coming up this year, plus completing the implementation of asset management, which all of these things together will allow us to make better decisions based on data all the time. All the utilities are going to be involved in deploying at least 3 new analytical tools or computer dashboard applications that will allow us to deliver information to decision makers more effectively. We'll execute the implementation of asset management for all 3 of the treatment plants by the end of 2022. This will allow them to do maintenance schedules, maintenance and replacement schedules, track inventory. The little star there means this was something we'd planned to do this year, but was delayed by COVID. We'll complete deployment and implementation of the cloud and mobile tracking software for sewage waste haulers as part of the preferred pumper program. And that's on the pretreatment side. And then implement SCADA monitoring of pumps, flow rates, disinfectant levels, and other parameters at least one of the tanks and booster stations. Employee and leadership development is a really important part of what we do every day. This category means to recruit, develop, and retain a workforce that is competent, motivated, adaptive, and safety-centered. This is one of the things that we work hard on, especially looking at leadership development and professional development amongst our professional staff, and creating opportunities for advancement for all the staff. We'll continue to invest, as the mayor has requested, at least 1.5% of our personnel budget in each division for professional training and development. This includes operator training for the state licenses. We will assure that all the work sites have at least one CPR certified team member, and we will have senior CVU leadership engaged in training for value stream mapping, and we'll map 4 of our operational processes to reduce waste and improve productivity. And then the next category is financial viability. This is planning for the life cycle cost of utility operations and the value of water resources. This involves maintaining balance between debt, asset values, and our O&M costs. What's important here to remember is we've been going through a lot of transformations between the advanced metering infrastructure, the implementation of asset management, the plant data collection, and the SCADA, or the laboratory information system. All these things together will allow us, again, to improve our operations, which will improve our financial viability. We will continue working on rate cases that pay attention to what we learn from asset management and really understanding the life cycle cost of everything we do. In all utilities, last year we purchased the CityWorks Enterprise Asset Management System. This software costs us $40,000 a year and it integrates with the GIS, but we've deployed it for the linear infrastructure, that's water distribution, sewer collection system. It's mostly being used right now by the MS4 program, but by the end of the year, we expect all of the T&D operations to be taking advantage of it. We'll be implementing centralized work order and inventory systems at the 3 plants, and also implementing the whole asset management system at the 3 plants in 2022 to bring all of that together. We'll implement the new waterworks rates within 60 days of the final approval of our rate case. We're hoping for that in the first quarter of 2022. That's on the waterworks. And then I think I don't have a slide. Nope, I left out a slide on the sewer works and the stormwater utility. We are in the very early stages of assembling information for rate cases for sewer and the stormwater utility that would be brought to the board and to the council in 2022 on our 4-year rotating schedule as usual. And then an infrastructure strategy and performance. This is maintaining and enhancing asset conditions to minimize life cycle costs and customer risk. In the waterworks, this means water main replacement. We will replace at least 2.5 miles of water mains at a cost of up to $2 million. This is based on the plan, the capital improvement plan that's included in our 2021 rate case that's presently awaiting IURC approval. Our ability to achieve this assumes that we're going to get that approval in time to get those projects done in 2022. We're also going to be identifying all the lead service lines in our system, and we'll complete the replacement plan by the end of the 3rd quarter of 2022. We expect we'll be replacing lead service lines for somewhere between 3 and 15 years. Now, council has agreed to place $700,000 into the plan for the first phase of spending from the $22.9 the city received from the American Rescue Plan. The final approval on that appropriation will come, we hope, a week from Wednesday when council takes it up for final action. We'll also be completing capital funded water projects throughout the plant and distribution system. Those total somewhere between $3 and $4.4 million. That's most importantly the East Tank coating and mixing system, the Monroe water treatment plant, belt filter press replacement, and filter media replacement at the Monroe plant. Again, our ability to achieve this goal depends on timely approval of the rate case by IURC. In the sewer works in 2022, we'll finish the project we're doing now. It's a $23 million project to do important modernization and improvement throughout the plant. And we expect the electrical and aeration improvements to save about a 15% in terms of our electrical consumption. This is also fundamental to our ability to increase the capacity of the plant. And completing that, the capacity improvement effort depends on going on to the next project, which would be to complete the digesters at the plant. That effort would be part of the 2022 rate case cycle. We'll also line 5 or 6 miles of sewer pipe and make other improvements at manholes and other infrastructure. Budgeted cost is around $700,000 to $800,000. The total of miles, number of miles that we complete will depend on the manholes that we discover while doing the projects. And in the stormwater utility, we plan to increase the residential stormwater grant to $100,000. This includes up to $20,000 that we would spend working with a contractor to improve our ability to reach out to underserved neighborhoods and assist applicants in scoping of their projects. This would level the playing field and help customers that have particularly tricky problems to work out solutions. And we'll complete the Hidden River Pathway project. This is a 1,800 cubic foot capacity for the increased runoff and storm flows from the Campus River, formerly Jordan River, flowing through downtown. That project has been underway since February. And now I'll have Laura take over for the numbers. Thank you.
Thanks, Vic. As you can see, this table shows the revenue budget highlights for each of the water, sewer, and stormwater utilities. As of June 30th of this year, we have completed about 47% of our water budget, which is to be expected. The first half of the year is generally a little bit lower. In the fall, when IU comes back and as people are using water for irrigation, we see our numbers bump up a little bit. So for next year, I projected a modest increase of about 2.7%. For sewer, we are currently at about 52% of our revenue goals as of June 30th. The sewer utility next year, again, has a modest increase of about 2.2%. And then for stormwater, we actually are doing pretty well this year. We have about 53% of our budget totals already as of June 30th. And next year, we anticipate about a 1% increase. So all in all, we're seeing some increases next year, which is nice. We were worried about this year. As you can see, from 20 to 21, our budget shrank a bit. We were anticipating impacts from COVID. Hopefully, as we see IU coming back in person this fall and hoping that things don't shut down again, we do think we'll hold steady and grow a little bit. Can you get the next slide? This table, something got funky here on it, shows the breakdown of the expense budget for the waterworks. One thing is we get our category 100 for personnel services from the controller's office, and they've done some changes. Can you go back, please, Vic? I'll fix it after the presentation. So we haven't really seen any increases in personnel services from the controller's office yet, as in we don't know if there's going to be a proposed salary increase this year. The changes that are in there, I think, are from they've updated all of the overtime budgets and things like that. And oh my gosh, sorry, I'm blanking on the word of the benefit expenses. I think health insurance is going up next year. For supplies, we have a level budget for next year, and other services has reduced a little bit. That is due to the rate case that we're paying for in water right now should be completed by then. So we have a couple line items like for our contractors and our financial advisor and our legal team who've been working on the rate case this year. So we'll see a decrease in the category 300. And then our bonds are almost exactly level next year. And the last category is other services, E&R. We expect that to come up a little bit, and that's due to an increase in overall revenues and then a decrease in some of the other categories. So here you can see, this is just a description of the increases and decreases from each of those categories from the previous slide. And we really don't have much of a change in the budget from last year to this year. This is the sewer works. And again, we see a little bit of change in the personnel services. Again, that doesn't have any of the, if there's going to be staff salary increases this year, we should find that out from the controller's office within the next few days, I think in the next week. If there is an increase this year, then that would be offset by a decrease in the extension and replacements budget. We're seeing, again, a fairly level budget for supplies, a small increase in other services. Primarily, we've been budgeting for some additional software, and that's driving most of that change. The water sinking, so those are our bond payments. They've gone up a little bit. We have the 2021 bond for sewer and storm. So that's where that change in $975,000 comes from. And again, when we have our total budget and we subtract out our bond payments and our personnel and supplies and other services, the money that we have left over is what we call that E&R budget. So we are seeing a decrease in E&R for next year. And Vic, can you? Again, this is a description of each of those categories. This is exactly what is going to be in the budget memo, so it may look familiar to you. Again, no large scale changes are expected. And then I'm ready for the next one. And finally, we have the stormwater utility. Again, we're expecting a modest increase. And again, we're still waiting for personnel numbers with modest changes in supplies. The other services, that $30,000 increase is what Vic had talked about with the stormwater grants. We had a budget of $70,000 this year for the residential stormwater grants, and they have asked for an additional $30,000 to help run that program. You'll see I split out this year the green infrastructure, so we have a budget of $400,000 for that. And then we do monthly transfers for the Hidden River project going to the sewer utility. So that's reflected in this as well. And here's just the breakdown again. So we'll see pretty much level changes in the budget for stormwater again. And I believe that was all the slides for the numbers part. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about it.
Are there any questions from the board? Megan, go ahead.
Water section, and I'm looking at like the breakdown here.
Yes.
I know that our personnel services went up, but I see the employee pensions and benefits went down. I just wondered, is that because we've had a significant like retirement and then that affects it, or why might that go down with our salaries and wages would go up?
Yeah, I think that can be part of it. All of that's loaded by our controller's office, and I'm not sure I'm not sure how they get the numbers they get sometimes. It could be reflected in having more open positions.
Okay, thank you.
Jim, do you have any questions? No?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, thank you. Laura, I do have one question, and that's about the additional $30,000 for the project that we have. So is that $30,000 going to translate into additional funds that are available to the public, or is that $30,000 including funds that's going to cover administrative costs?
So I believe that's what Vic had been talking about. I'll let him actually answer it because this was his idea.
Yes, the answer is yes, both. And James can probably fill in a little bit. The objective here is that as we've gone through this now a few times, one of the challenges that we see is that even though there are some good projects out there to be done and people who have real problems that need to be solved, there are a lot of people who don't have the expertise, the understanding, or the access to the resources that they need to get a good design done. So we're trying to improve the quality of the applications to make sure that the program will serve as many people as possible, especially in underserved portions of the community where there really are some significant stormwater issues, to make the whole program more effective over time and in terms of what it delivers to the MS4 program. James, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, that's the biggest gist of it. And also this year and past years, we've heard some complaints from committee members about plant selections and things of that nature. And we may use the contractor to kind of help us beef those up and make it easier for the contractor installing the projects to know what to put in instead of just guessing about what they should be using.
So just to be clear, so it's actually that 30,000 is going to be used for grants and for the staff to be able to handle this, correct?
Right, it will be for a contractor that will help, an outside contractor that would do some of the outreach kind of efforts and the project assistance. It's about 50-50 what the split would be.
Okay.
What we're thinking.
Okay, Jim, it looks like you have a question now.
Yeah, I guess I do. Perhaps it's a little early to think about this, but I wondered whether CBU was thinking about any possible impact of annexation on our budget.
Yes, we are. The annexation will not affect water or sewer, with the exception of people who, so there will be some people who are currently in Area B who have to go through the extra step of going to the board for approval for sewer extensions. I think it will be easier to get sewer extensions, but we don't do them automatically. The neighborhoods will still have to pay for them just like they do now. So we don't anticipate that annexation will have much of an effect on either of those because we already sell everybody water anyway. The annexation will not change the territories of the wholesale water utilities. So we will continue to serve the customers we serve today, and the wholesalers will continue to serve the customers that they serve today. The difference will be taking on the stormwater issues in the urbanized portion of the county that was annexed. So we will have more issues to deal with. We'll have a bunch of problems and differences in the way their systems are designed, or differences in their construction standards, but we'll also get the revenue from all those additional residences and businesses in order to pay for them. So we anticipate, and we've, ever since the annexation was first proposed, we've said that we anticipate that we would be adding an additional storm crew out in T&D for handling those kinds of things. And we would probably be planning to increase there would be a proportional increase in the amount of money available for green infrastructure as part of that effort as well.
Okay, thanks. Also, based on last year's rate charges, if residents who are not in the city limits now become annexed and part of the city, their rates would decrease.
Slightly, yes.
But it won't be a big effect on the budget, I assume.
It'll be, Laura, my guess, probably 1% or 2% on revenues for that.
Yeah.
But we're also doing a rate study. If annexation comes to pass, we can go back and recalculate the inside-outside difference to correct for that in the future.
Good, thank you.
Okay, if I don't see any other questions, unless there are. Otherwise, I think that this is great work as always on behalf of the team there that works on it. I know crunching all these numbers this time it's never, for me, it wouldn't be very fun. Laura, you probably love it. So at this point, I don't think we need we don't have to do a recommendation. We don't have to vote. This is just a preliminary discussion of the budget. And so when will you be making the full presentation to the board?
So we've been talking in-house about what procedure we would like to propose. And we wanted to have as many opportunities for there to be input from the board members and the subcommittee. We were leaving open the possibility of scheduling a second subcommittee meeting next week in case there were questions that weren't resolved or to handle anything that might come up in between. If there aren't any questions, we could still leave that placeholder there and then cancel it if you didn't think there was a reason to have it, or we could just not do it next week. We would be bringing the final presentation to the board at the meeting on the 16th, and we would need to have a subcommittee meeting, just a short one right before the board meeting to approve any recommendation the subcommittee might want to make. So it's we're at your disposal if you want to have a deeper dive or answer any missing questions next week. We can schedule that as late as, well, we'd only need 48 hours notice. So if some things come up as you're looking it over between now and next week and you want to have another gathering of the subcommittee, please let us know and we'll just schedule it.
Great. And when will these documents be shared with the rest of the board? Is it still too early, or?
We're still doing some markups and trying to get some final numbers from City Hall. As Laura said, we don't know whether or how much the any salary increases might be. We also don't know yet what the benefit numbers will be. And in fact, we have requests for some position changes. We aren't asking for any new positions, but we are asking to change a few. We haven't received any final word from downtown about that either. So all of those things we would plan to send it to everyone as soon as everything's finalized and we have the final organizational charts and so forth. So hopefully this week, probably next week.
All right, so can we all hold that 4 o'clock time prior to the meeting on the 16th for the next finance? We'll just hold that as a placeholder in case something does come up. I don't think we need anything for next week.
Okay.
I mean, unless if something were to come up that you find out from the city that completely blows these out of the water, then in that case we could certainly reconvene next week if needed.
Okay.
But Amanda, the necessity for the subcommittee to meet on the 16th before the regular meeting is an absolute.
That is correct.
Yes.
Yes,
So it's more than a placeholder. It's a given.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. As long as we're clear.
And if we could at least try to protect next Monday at 4 o'clock, just in case we won't have a meeting. It won't be on the schedule officially unless Laura and Vic get something that then justifies it coming out. And then of course we have to give the 48 hours notice. So
yeah. So we would go by 5 o'clock on Thursday.
Perfect.
Or 4 o'clock on Thursday.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right. Well, I don't think there's anything else unless there's any petitions or communications from anyone else that's out there watching. I think we're good. Okay.
There's nothing on Facebook and there's nothing here in chat.
Thanks, Holly. So with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Great. All right. We'll see you all back at 5 o'clock.